Loving God, take our minds and think through them, take our lips and speak through them, take our hearts and set them on fire. Amen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Here we are in the middle of a presidential campaign, a form of political engagement or political theater, depending on your perspective, that comes around once every 4 years. Sometimes it seems like it never stops. People flock to see candidates at exuberant rallies or other more tame events, online, in person. It doesn't really matter. People want to see the candidates. They want to hear what they have to say and learn what they will do. Perhaps they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. But there's always this kind of economic calculus that many people, perhaps unconsciously, apply to political decisions. It goes something like this. There aren't enough resources for everyone. So how will our political leaders go about allocating resources? Given this scarcity, how will I be taken care of? How will I be rewarded for my support? Will I get more from this candidate's government than from the opponents? Will my friends be rewarded? Or my enemies be punished? In today's gospel, we just might see some parallels between our own attraction to political figures and that of our ancestors in faith. Now, the feeding of the 5,000 is one of the most famous of Jesus's many miracles. And in fact, it's the only one that is recorded in all 4 Gospels. There's a point we're supposed to get here. One of the first things we learn about this story is that Jesus is going to feed this crowd even though they are following him for the wrong reasons. How do we know this? Because the chapter begins with a loud statement that a large crowd is following him because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. Not because they wanted to learn from Jesus or because they had come to believe that he is God's promised Messiah. They just want to see more miracles. A spectator sport of sorts. But Jesus doesn't mind why they're there. He sees an opportunity to care for them anyway and to teach them about the coming kingdom. He also has an opportunity to teach the apostles a lesson too. The simple but radical lesson that with Jesus, there is always enough. He begins by asking one of the 12, Philip, where are we going to buy bread for these people to eat? He said this to test them because he knew what he was about to do and he wasn't going to call for takeout. The disciples hear this question through the lens of scarcity. They are quite sure that they cannot do anything about the problem of too many people, not enough food. It would take 6 months' wages to buy enough bread for 5,000 people. And even if they had the money, who has that much bread? One of the 12 calls attention to a boy who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fishes. But what use is that meager lunch among so many people? Not enough, not nearly enough. 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish are not going to feed the thousands of people that are there to be with Jesus. It doesn't take much to figure out that they don't have enough to feed this crowd. But the problem is that the disciples are looking at the situation the wrong way. They are convinced that they don't have enough because they are focused on what they don't have. And they are forgetting about what they do have. What they do have is Jesus. Jesus has been performing all kinds of miracles. His disciples have been witnessing these amazing displays of power. So why wouldn't Jesus be able to feed this crowd? The disciples don't believe that Jesus can. Why? Because when you look at the world through the lens of scarcity, there is never enough of anything. It is almost as if these disciples are looking at Jesus as a scarce resource, only available to do so much. And they want to make sure that they use this resource carefully. But Jesus is not a scarce resource. With Jesus, there is always enough. Now, where do we put ourselves in this story? Are we a part of a crowd interested in the next spectacle? Are we like the disciples, still looking through a lens of scarcity? Do we mislead ourselves about political choices when we focus on what politicians can or will do instead of who they are as people? Jesus doesn't play by the rules of economics or partisan politics. And so in this story, Jesus teaches us a different way of looking at the world, his way, through the lens of abundance, not scarcity. And looking at the world this way changes how one lives in the world. When we see the world through the lens of abundance and not scarcity, amazing things can happen. And if you'd like to experience what this means in real life, I invite you to spend the first Saturday morning of the month in our parish hall at the food pantry. It will show you what it looks like to see the world through the lens of abundance. Amen.